Guys, and welcome back to Betwixt the Books. It's Michaela here, and I'm gonna talk a bit about my reading resolutions for the year. Even though we're at the very end of January here, I haven't made this video yet, so I figured it would be a good time to talk about it. If you didn't see my video from last year, I had a bunch of like little resolutions that I was working towards that kind of fell a little bit by the wayside towards the end of the year. And I think taking that energy with me into this year is sort of what's going to wind up happening. To start, I do always do like the number reading challenge every single year. Last year I wanted to read 52 books, which is one book a week. I did that successfully, and so I'm going to keep that the same for this year. 52 books. If I read more, that's fine. If I read less, that's also fine. It's just on average, I usually will read about one book a week. Sometimes I go a month without reading anything. Other times I'll read 5 books in the same week, but it averages out to about one book a week for the year. So I think that that's a pretty comfortable number for me. Last year I was trying to read at least 3 books from my backlist every single month, dedicated by color. So last year January was pink, so I was trying to read 3 of the pink covered books from my backlist here. I didn't 100% complete that challenge. I started the challenge technically last September, and it really fell apart around this September, so I did do 1 full year of the challenge, but it wasn't through the entirety of 2025, and I did miss a couple of months where I didn't quite hit my quota for the colors that I needed to hit. But the core of that goal was to read more of my backlist titles, and I definitely did that. So I'm gonna count that as successful and like what the core of it was, even if I wasn't 100% successful with the challenge. I think for this year, I'm not going to constrain myself as much, like not going to require it to be by color. A lot of times I struggle when it comes to like choice paralysis, which is why I had given myself those constraints to try and help me not feel overwhelmed with the sheer volume of books that I have and like what do I want to read. But I think this year I would rather focus on like either what videos I want to make, so picking books that fit to a specific theme, or what is actually calling to me genre-wise at the time. I may still decide to change my mind on that. I have the prerogative to do that, but I don't think I'm going to give myself like a hard, strict challenge in the same way that I did. Whether it is like a certain number of books from my backlist each month or even like where they're coming from, I'm going to let myself just read where I want to read. I do still want to read more of my backlist titles because a lot of my big successes last year were from the books that I already owned. And I think that that's saying something, that I do know what my taste is. And because I was focusing so much on reading the arcs that I was trying to read or promote, or reading what was new, more so because it was new and less so because I was like 100% like fully into reading that book, it led me to reading like a lot of 3-star books throughout the years, and I would like to read more books that I love. Not to say that just because I bought it that I'm going to love it, but a lot of the books that I really loved last year came from books that I had picked up for myself that I felt like I couldn't talk about on the channel because they were old. So I think I've gotten out of that habit. I'm allowing myself to talk about some older titles, and I'm going to read more just how I'm feeling. The other challenge I had last year was to read 1 nonfiction a month, and that also fell apart around the same time as my Rainbow Reading Challenge did last year. I do still want to make sure that I'm pushing myself to read more of the nonfiction that I pick up. I am still interested in them. Again, I don't think I want to constrain myself to like, you have to read 1 a month, but I do want to make sure that I'm still picking them up. So I think I'm going to give myself like this first quarter and see if I pick up some of those nonfiction on my own, if I've gotten into the habit of it, or if I fall back into only reaching towards fiction. And if that becomes the case, then I might go back to trying to push myself to read 1 nonfiction a month. Because it's not that I'm not interested in them or I don't enjoy them, but just when it comes to me mood reading, it's almost like I never want to pick up a nonfiction book on my own. So I may need to force myself to do it, but at the moment I'm not going to tie myself down to any specific number, just that I do want to read more. I think most of my actual goals this year are that I want to be more present here and actually showing up and talking about stuff. I've been enjoying doing these videos that take me longer to do, where I have to read a bunch of books to talk about all of those all together, which means that likely I'm not going to have like a review video every single week in the same way that Gretchen does. I do still pick up arcs, and I may every once in a while pop in with an arc review, but I feel like I more so have been enjoying doing my like looking at a bunch of books in the same sort of category and comparing and contrasting them and talking about them all together. I think that's more what my brain has been wanting to do. And I do really love books in conversation with each other. So when I'm reading a couple of books that have similar themes and I can put them next to each other and like show this versus this, this book does this really well and this does this aspect really well, or actually now reading this after having read that, it adds depth to this other book because you can see the way that they speak in conversation. And I'd like to do more of that coming in the next year, which means that I'm sort of not necessarily giving up on this idea of having a video every single week, but giving up on the idea of like every single week having some sort of review. I don't think that's sustainable for me. So I'm gonna have to get a bit more creative in what my other content is, whether it is a sit down video like this one where I'm just talking about a bunch of things, or I look more at discussing things in the bookish community, doing more discusses on my own, because I know that Gretchen and I used to do that pretty regularly. But now that we've dropped down the Betwixt content to just one like other Betwixt and then one reading roundtable a month usually, not gonna commit to all of those either, but it means that some of those ideas that I was putting forth that we were using for joint videos, I can use for my own content here. If you haven't heard me talk about it in some of our more recent videos, Isaac and I are buying a house, which will hopefully be closing this week. Currently, it's set to close at the end of the week. As long as the bank stuff happens, that's there. If bank stuff pushes it, it might not happen till next week, but because February is going to most likely be me packing and moving, I don't know if I'm going to have a whole lot of solo content to give to you guys, just because I won't have a space like set up to do it right away, and I don't know if our internet will be ready right away. But if you give me some grace through February, I'm hoping that a new environment gives me some rejuvenation, and also in that time, I'm sure I'm still going to be reading plenty. It's just whether or not I'll be able to sit down and film for you. Gretchen and I obviously still have our buddy reading challenge that we're planning to use to help us decide on things to read or different discussions to have during our reading roundtables throughout the year. And we do also have some other ideas outside of that. But this year, I think, other than just wanting to keep on top of reading, keep on top of making videos, and just in general wanting to read the things I already have, I don't have a whole lot of concrete plans, and I think I'm okay with that. Part of me is a little worried because my ADHD, when we don't have a plan, has a tendency to just be like, oh, so then we don't have to read. We don't have to do anything. There's nothing that we're working towards. There's no goal. But I don't think I necessarily need that, because I think I'm going to try using my themed videos as my mini challenges, so to speak. I'd be curious to know how you feel about reading challenges or reading resolutions or reading goals. I know a lot of people are doing things like book buying bans, and I did a video last year where I talked about why even though I have a bunch of unread books on my physical TBR, I'm never really guilty about having those. But I know a lot of folks really like to have a low number on their physical TBR. They want their books to be mostly read. And I know a lot of folks also enjoy challenges that make sure that they're reading widely. That's not usually something that I struggle with, because I naturally am curious about books from other cultures, and I pick up books from other cultures. I read primarily queer books. I love translated work. I do focus a lot just naturally in what I'm interested in a very wide collection of genres and cultures and everything else that you could think. But I know that some folks find that they tend to skew towards the more American-centric, white-centric, straight-centric books, and they need to have these challenges to help keep them accountable. I'd be interested to hear if you're like me and sometimes they feel a little bit constraining and overwhelming and you just want to read what you want to read, or if they are helpful to you in the way that they often are in helping me to narrow down your choices and what you want to read. Or if you're just a mood reader who walks into a library or a bookstore and picks up whatever catches your fancy. I know everybody reads differently, and it's interesting to see like how different people choose different things to read. So yeah, if you have anything to add about resolutions, what yours are, maybe down below. If you would do something like the challenge that I did last year, where I was reading books by color, which is like a super open-ended challenge. Gretchen and I in the past have done things like the Pop Sugar reading challenge and things like that. Are you a reading challenge, reading resolution person, or are you more of a I read what I want to read type person, which is all totally valid. I am working on a video right now that is all about female vampires in recent literature. So you can look forward to that. Will it be next week? I don't know. I don't know when my next video is going to be because, again, closing on the house might be packing next week. But when I do come back, I will have something for you that hopefully is that. If not, I'll have something else enjoyable, I'm sure. I will talk to you guys again soon. Bye.